I want to apologize for my lateness in this video. The last few weeks I haven't been able to record audio because of work schedule changes. I also decided to try a new video editor. It's not perfect, but it works better than what I had before. On to the video. After all the discussion on fronts, we can talk about things a little more directly. The reason why I was going to do this study was entirely to look at how all these money laundering fronts could be used on the internet. We've seen examples, reasons, and even points of view on how and why fronts are made. I've done my best to keep it within video game culture and history, along with not being too recent. The problem now is explaining how it would work within a system without pointing a finger specifically at a place. Instead, I will point out how it should work and why, and then the signs of what is going on. Honestly, a lot of entertainment is a bit of trickery. I've had a few comments about the way I edit my videos. You assume I just talk into a microphone and it comes out all at once. Instead, I do multiple takes and screen record whatever video I am using at the same time. You don't see the mistakes or the video used because of this trickery. Now that you know, you will go back to previous videos and notice how often I switch to different parts. The style you want with one long recording is actually more difficult and takes more time than what you think it is, but your mind doesn't realize what is going on unless you know what to look for. Fronts are like this. They say one thing and point you in a different direction than reality. If you don't go looking for signs, it looks like they're telling the truth. As an example, for an obvious but unnoticed front, there are many restaurants doing just that. Imagine a hole-in-the-wall restaurant near random retail shops. What do you know about it or the owner? Do you care if it appears or disappears? Unless you went in and tried the food, which is usually pretty good, you would barely even register that it exists. We even know it's a thing for the mob because people went into hiding and then reported what they saw. But then they had a movie based on themselves somehow. Why they had a movie made about something they are now hiding from is weird to me. This idea of the diner sets up how the front works perfectly, though. Most people outside of the restaurant business, or a fan of random food places, don't even know it exists. If you do go in, they feed you and the food isn't that bad. In some cases, the food is amazing, and you wonder why it doesn't have a bigger name. No one really knows how well the business does, and the owner seems unwilling to talk about it. If this restaurant disappears tomorrow, you would just assume they ran out of money like any other business in the area. This idea works so well, you can actually use it as a basis for other fronts. So let's aim it at something completely different. The entire reason why I started this study was to ask how a website could be a front for money laundering. Why a website? Because it's like the restaurant. I've seen a lot of amazing websites that serve a small group. Go ahead and think about it. What do you think of a video game website? It doesn't matter which one. Now, why are they popular? And how does their business work? Is the guy running it respected, but somehow seems to be losing it? How about the people working at it? Do they seem like creatives who demand their way and don't really know how the business is working? Hey, how does the company make money by you viewing it? How about this? Do they have a central office that doesn't make any sense at all? Finally, does anyone outside of niche fans even know this website exists? Let's break it down, only from the point of view of someone trying to make a website into a money laundering scheme. It's a popular website, right? Or can you fake that? To give you an idea, I once had a blog tell me I was getting 200 views a day, but everyone viewing it could only read in Russian. I checked it out and the websites referring my blog were just lists upon lists of random websites. Far weirder, everyone who viewed my blog was using Linux as their main operating system. I like Linux well enough, but a blog about video game culture does not seem to attract a lot of Linus Torvalds fans. When I asked friends about their websites, they all showed the same patterns. No one knew why it was happening, except that it was. I finally realized the owner of the blogging site was hiring views from Russian bot farms to make us feel like we were important. It wasn't from hard work or amazing skill. Someone was faking popularity. There are tons of programs to do this. Most IT folks even know they exist, and even use them to test a website if it can handle that much use. Most don't realize it can also make websites, videos, and other stuff on the web look more popular than it really is. But what about outside of the website? Surely someone can check on it through Wikipedia or some other method, right? Welcome to the cult test. The cult test is based on the idea that if you look at a Wikipedia page and nothing bad is mentioned, it was likely being controlled. The term comes from the fact that cults like to edit their pages to remove any controversy. Not a joke, the Church of Scientology allows controversy, along with the Catholic Church and any other well-known religion. A cult will be something like a few thousand members, and if you don't know they exist, you don't even know how to look them up. So the Wikipedia page will have nothing but praise and simple information on the group. If the page is even allowed onto Wikipedia, that is. So the website will have a page on it, talking about things, but will feel controlled. The controversy will be about some small thing, and not affect the website itself. Remember, if you don't know the website or its detractors existed, you wouldn't know what to look up unless someone told you. As another example, both Japan and China stopped talking about their histories past the 1920s. Everything that happened beyond those points into the Cold War and empires is such a hard discussion, both countries have decided to not bring it up at all. Because of this, many Chinese students coming to America are shocked to hear their own history. We are not even done with this subject yet. There are also commenters all over the website. They can't be faked as well, right? Not only can they be faked, they can be faked with programs and people for hire. There are whole promotional companies that go into random groups and post about how much they love something, or the big controversy that hides the fact that the company may not even be real. I first noticed this in a group when someone claimed to be living in New York and was Iranian. The problem was the person only posted about the war in Iraq and how bad it was. There were lots of comments back and forth, but when the IP was traced, the poster turned out to be in Iran. It was a psyops on some random forum being done by the Iranian government. So it's not just Wikipedia pages, but the comments and ideas surrounding the subject can be fake without people realizing it. In fact, they often have arguments with each other, and specifically have one side act angry at the other. People side with things, but don't realize this is being used to dodge the real subjects going on with the website. That's the thing. In your mind, the website is covering a subject you feel strongly about, but most people don't care. Let's talk about The Sims. I personally know it exists, and that there are a lot of fans about it. I even want to do studies on this subject, but haven't so far. But when I talk to Sims fans, I hear about controversy, the latest designs, and how it helps with architecture. Then, when I talk to fans of first-person shooters, they barely know the game exists. To them, the entire subject must be some popular niche and nothing to worry about. Even if I told those fans that The Sims regularly makes more money than the first-person shooters, the response would be some form of unbelief. Why? Because if the subject is unimportant to the non-fan, why should it be fun for the fan? Most fronts work off of this. You don't realize what you are looking at or how the business is run because it's not that important to you. Several video game companies have used this popular niche idea to help with money laundering, and the fans are too into the various subjects, but not the business side to notice what is going on. Then, when someone outside of the fandom sees it, all they really see is some small thing that couldn't possibly be worth billions of dollars every year. Now let's really get into it. How is the business run? Very likely you know who the head editor is, but not the business side of things. In fact, the only real information you can find out is the website has investors, and works off of ads. Why do the ads work? Because the website is popular to the niche, and they can prove it with view counts and interactions. The editor is trying to reach the most fans, and thus possible buyers for the ads as possible. he can't go beyond that point because he honestly doesn't know how. Far worse, getting close to the truth means hits and comments start to disappear. The company never seems to be making enough money, so it's a bad idea to rock the boat. However, he can rail against any negative comments about the websites, and the people who seem to really support the subjects being brought up against him. So the editor, who likely started the site and then got popular without really knowing why, is approached by the investors. We already know who these investors are, but the owner doesn't. They promise nice treatment and to keep doing things that are popular. Comments and hit count all show this is a good idea, so he signs up with them. They even provide office space for him to hire full-time workers, and they all work on stuff. But why? Think about it. Why does a website need office space? The reality is, this is part of the con. There isn't one money laundering scheme. There are several. The office and its land is owned by the investors, and rent, which is high, is being paid to the investors. The prime real estate scheme, the office space, even the servers and computers being used are all owned by the investor and put into accounts that will all look legit. The entire point is to make the people in charge and the full-time staff feel important and in debt at the same time. They don't know why things are popular, or even what the business side of things do. The investors put in some business guys to help with that. As full-time staff, it really feels you made it by entering into these nice-looking offices and doing what you imagined in university. The debt to the university, the amount being paid, and other luxuries seem insane to you, but the website always feels like the good times are about to drop at any moment. They get praised for all that they do, and have rent even paid for them. Why? Because the place they are renting from is also owned by the investors. Heck, even the electricity and other utilities is owned by them. So they are paying rent from paycheck to paycheck to a building owned by the person who gave them that paycheck. This creates an even bigger scheme. Most of that check goes back to various companies the original investor owns. The creatives feel stuck but accomplished in how much they have reached their niche. They think getting one rung higher or doing some big thing will make them feel safe. But nothing does. They are constantly worried the good times will end. Some of these creative types need to stay on their game. It feels like they have to be working and hard, way beyond their own body can handle. Then someone introduces drugs to them. This drug helps them be creative. This one helps them work hard and not feel tired. And this one has a slight feeling of happiness. The drugs are given, along with other things, to keep their minds going, that they don't even realize they are being controlled. All they really know is how quickly they can be replaced. This desperation makes them do things they didn't expect. Steal from someone else? Sure. Stop sleeping? Of course. Never leave the office? That's why they have cops. The other staff doesn't really care. They make sure paperwork is done, the place is cleaned, and other parts are finished up. The website might be cool, but it's obvious it's all on subjects and ideas the other staff don't really understand. Direct staff who work in the building have the same deals and ideas being used on them, only pointing at the creatives as people to watch and emulate. Then we get into people who do things online for the website. Most people want to be on the creative side. They are willing to be paid very little just to see their own name on the website. The main staff makes $80,000 a year in salary, but the online staff makes about $250 an article. Even if the creatives want to help, they don't recognize what is happening to them or the website. So if they demand more money for others, somehow their own viewer count goes down. At some point, fans start calling out the website for something being off. The leadership and creatives think these callouts are the same as bad posters they see all the time on the website. In fact, the website doesn't need these jerks, who are in fact the same kind of shills who are promoting the website or getting in arguments. The website goes through some tough times and is forced to sell itself to another investment group. This is where things get rocky. The reality is, this new investment group is still laundering money, just not as much. Meanwhile, the controversy by fans arguing overwhelms the staff. This is being done on purpose, so they don't recognize all the sudden changes. The entire website feels different, as if the businessmen think the company never made money. The creatives feel stifled and start looking for greener pastures. They are, of course, correct. It never made money, but they don't realize that. The online staff starts to be major writers and workers for the site, but the small office is still being used. The original editor may or may not even be around by this point, but fans don't recognize the amount of change happening around them. The office and nice treatment is offered as an enticement to the writers and online staff as a way to keep putting in long hours for little pay. We haven't even gotten into how politics can be involved with the company being paid to promote this idea or that idea, and the entire company agreeing. They want the message to be heard. The staff believes it because of how much of their lives are controlled, and then the rest of the staff doesn't care. The company gets sold and bought several times until they are bought by a giant company that uses the website as a tax write-off. Eventually, the website itself simply disappears, and no one cares because all the fandom left during the big writers' controversy a while back. To the outside, it's just like a nice enough business that went under. No one really cares because it happens all the time. The fans feel sad and the people who worked there feel sad, but everyone moves on and remembers the good times. If the staff had made too much of a splash, things would have been hurried along, but it's the same end result. The investors do not expect the company to last forever, so they take it for what they can get out of it, and that's it. The leadership often doesn't even realize they had been conned. The same goes for the creatives. But the fans who complained could check things like views and commenters and other checks to see what is going on. It takes some work though. The first part is comparing statistics against each other. Look at the console sales and then the top selling games for that console. If the numbers are drastically different, then something is wrong. For example, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is the most popular game from the PS2 era, and is still being sold for Xbox consoles today. But the game sold about 20 million copies, while the PS2 itself sold 160 million consoles. That kind of discrepancy is hard to believe and deserves further research. Then compare the way the various sites are referring to the product. If it seems to be major praise or a lot of anger, see why. It could be an opinion problem, but it could also be they are being paid to talk like this. If it seems they are unable to be impartial, then the sites have problems. The fans themselves also need to be checked. When the PS3 came out in Japan, Sony had a big line and talked about how amazing it was. Then they tried to interview the guy in front of the line, and he couldn't speak Japanese. It turned out the line was mostly Chinese immigrants who were paid to be there and act excited. For online sites, check the IP and response by people. If they are saying things very similar over and over again, there is likely a bot or paid shill involved. It's especially obvious if opinions against the subject are erased and treated like it's a bad idea. Then you check the IP and stats of the people who seem suspect. If they seem to all be coming from a single source or use Linux, then you know they aren't as real as they claim. The final obvious question to ask is, are they making money? It can look like they are, but ask how the company can afford the really nice office, all the perks for the creative side of the company, and even deal with the constant battles they seem to go through. If it's ads, why are the ads making money? If it's something else, ask how the idea could be manipulated, and then check for signs of it happening. It's not going to be a single thing that proves the suspicion true, but several irregularities in how the business operates. If you can use this to figure out how they are operating and how things work, it can be a fascinating time. This is actually the end of my study, so I thought I would give some final things I've learned. We'll save that for the next video though, because this one has enough on it to get me in trouble. I've had a few people ask me about various companies and whether or not they are fronts. So just review the stats as I described, and you should have a fairly good way to figure it out. For now, though, I want to thank everyone for viewing. It's been really cool to have so many comments and ideas for these videos. I used a new video editor and technique to make this video, so tell me what you think. If you get the chance, check out my other accounts, and of course, like and subscribe, or even support my Patreon. Check out my final video on the subject, coming soon enough, and maybe comment on ideas for the next subject for me to research. Have a good one!